It was the look of compassion. It was the look of compassion that broke through. As I hung there on the cross, looking at Jesus, as He gazed into my eyes, it was that look of compassion. I hadn't seen compassion since I was a little boy. My mother died when I was 7. And my father was a drunk whose idea of compassion was to call me an idiot. He'd tell me time and time again to leave his presence. And after years of listening to him tell me this, I was finally glad to do. I was 10 years old, living on the streets. I wasn't going to let anybody get to me. I wasn't going to allow myself to feel the hurt from others any longer. So I learned to steal. First it was little things from my friends and children of the community. By 14, it was with a knife. I robbed a man of everything that he had as he was passing through town. By the time I was 20, I had killed a man. For the next 20 years, everywhere that I went, people would whisper about me behind my back when I walked by. They were certain that I was not the type of person that they wanted to be around when the sun was setting. Finally, my life had caught up to me. I was caught stealing with my friend Levi. When the long list of crimes were laid out in front of us, we were determined worthy of death. They said that we were worthless causes. Worthless causes. The next morning, we carried our crosses from Jerusalem to Calvary. This is where the Romans would crucify us. I was determined not to let them see my fear, but inside I was terrified. There was a third man with us. His name was Jesus of Nazareth. What a strange thing to be crucified with Jesus. I mean, I'd heard of him before for sure, but I'd never seen him. My friends, they had gone to hear him speak, to preach, and even heal. Many of them would come back to me, and they'd tell me that this man was different than any other rabbi or peddler of the truth. No, this man, he actually cared for them. He would even sit down and eat with them. The girls, too, they would come back to tell me that they found religion listening to Jesus. He said to the Jewish people, "Turn your cheek to the Romans." He said to love your enemy. Wow. He said to pray for those who persecute you. He said to forgive. I mean, this is the man who was out there healing the sick, and yet he's about to be crucified. As they prepared to lay us down on the crosses, I couldn't hold back. As they drove the spike through my wrist, I cried out once. Only once in pain. Levi, too, he let out a shriek. And then they raised Jesus, and he had one simple cry. There was a crowd all around us. And this crowd, it was larger than usual. The people there, they weren't there for Levi or myself. In fact, they were ignoring us. These were the money changers and the hypocrites who are now focused on Jesus. They were hurling their insults at a man who had done nothing wrong. They stood in smug satisfaction watching Jesus being crucified. Now, I must admit I was grateful that they weren't hurling their insults at me. But even Levi and I, we joined in on this blasphemy. We spoke ill of this man as though it made us feel better about ourselves. I hurled one particularly vile insult Jesus' way. And he turned and he looked at me. With compassion, he looked at me. His gaze, it pierced my soul. He read me like an open book. He knew everything that I had done, yet he still shows compassion. Levi continued to insult Jesus. And I was so ashamed by this look of compassion. I heard Jesus say, "Father, forgive them." He was talking about us and them. Levi continued, and I looked over and said, "Shut up! Just shut up! This man has done nothing wrong. You and I, we deserve this. But what has he done?" "No, Levi, just shut up! Shut up!" I turned and I looked at Jesus. He turned back to look at me. As if to say thank you. To say thank you. It was in that moment, that very moment, I looked at him right in the eyes. I said, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom."